Spaceships. You know them, you love them. Whether they're carrying daring explorers to other planets, delivering cargo to a remote base, or dueling alien armadas, spaceships and their propulsion systems are an essential part of space exploration in science fiction. What type of engine a spaceship has can determine everything about its design, its performance, its combat roles, everything. And there are a lot of options to choose from. Whether you're creating spaceships for a science fiction book, script, or animation, or you just want to increase your scientific knowledge, this video will be your guide. We'll be covering and comparing spaceship engines in 4 categories: chemical engines, electrical rockets, nuclear systems, and more exotic propulsion systems. Each will receive its own video. Today this video will cover chemical rockets, including current engines used on spaceships today and what exciting technologies might exist in the future. There are a few basic things to understand about how a rocket works. Rockets run on Newton's third law in its purest form. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. If you push against something, you move in the opposite direction. Except space has nothing to push against, so instead a rocket has to be pushed by the propellant it throws out the back. And it takes a lot of propellant to go anywhere in space. To get into orbit alone, it can take thousands of pounds of fuel for even a small payload, and to launch things larger or further it gets preposterously difficult. Squeezing as much performance as you can out of a rocket is everything. As we analyze a rocket's performance, there are 2 key things to pay attention to: thrust, which is how much force a rocket creates, and exhaust velocity, which measures a rocket's fuel efficiency and is often converted to a specific impulse. Rockets tend to be either powerful or efficient. Rockets with a lot of power can accelerate quickly during the first few minutes of a journey, then coast the rest of the way. Efficient rockets can't change course very quickly, but they can fire their engines for hours or even days at a time, and can carry less fuel to reach the same destination. If a rocket has both, it moves into a category called torch ship, a rocket able to sustain high accelerations for long periods of time. Developing a torch ship is the holy grail of rocket science. With it, you could cut travel time between planets from months down to mere days. What type of engine your ships use will significantly change how space travel works in your settings. Anyway, with that information out of the way, let's get into our engines. First, we have chemical rockets. These rockets use chemical reactions, usually some form of fuel plus oxidizer, to generate thrust. Chemical rockets are easily the most common form of rocket today. They're used on everything from small sounding rockets to the massive SLS. They are extremely powerful, but at the same time extremely limited. Modern chemical rockets are extremely fuel inefficient, and they have no indication of getting much better. Chemical rockets can be split into 2 main categories: solid fuel and liquid fuel. Solid fuel is arguably the simplest type of rocket fuel. They are relatively cheap, easy to store, and powerful. Solid rocket motors like the ones on the Space Shuttle or SLS are great when you need a lot of boost all at once, but they have their limitations. For one, most solid motors can be difficult to control once they are lit. They are also horrendously inefficient. Ammonium perchlorate composite, among the most efficient forms of solid fuel, gets a maximum specific impulse of only about 285 seconds. Solid rockets are useful for simple first stages or boosters during launch, but they aren't very helpful for an interplanetary warship. For that, we'll need something else. That is where liquid fuel comes in. Though more complex and rarely as cheap, liquid fuel offers much more flexibility and efficiency. In the modern day, most rockets use one of 2 fuels: kerosene or liquid hydrogen. Kerosene, a type of petroleum, is the less efficient of the 2, giving a specific impulse of only around 300 seconds in a vacuum, but it is much denser and easier to store since it is stable at room temperature. Liquid hydrogen, on the other hand, is much more efficient at between 350 and 450 specific impulse, with a theoretical maximum of nearly 550. It also burns cleaner, with less tendency to leave soot on the internal pipes of the rocket. However, it also needs to be extremely cold to stay liquid, which means a lot of insulation and challenges with storing it. This issue is in fact what caused one of the delays to the Artemis moon launch, where a hydrogen leak forced them to scrub the launch and make repairs. Hydrogen is also much less dense, which means a larger tank and more structural parts. All of this added mass means that although the fuel itself is more efficient, you don't actually save all that much in terms of weight. However, recently a third type of liquid fuel has begun to make an appearance: liquid methane. With characteristics that sit sort of in between the strength and drawbacks of hydrogen and kerosene, methane engines have most recently seen development by SpaceX to use on their Starship rocket. Among its other advantages, methane can be manufactured from chemical reactions on the Moon and Mars, which will be vital for the company to achieve its goal of establishing human settlements on the Mars surface. Methane is likely to be used a lot in near-future interplanetary missions. In all three cases, however, these rockets are extremely fuel inefficient. If space travel for our fictional heroes is going to be faster and more convenient, or if we want spaceships that aren't 95% fuel tanks, we'll need something better. This is where metallic hydrogen comes in. The first of many hypothetical rockets we'll be talking about in these videos. Metallic hydrogen is a theoretical state of hydrogen where it is placed under such immense pressures that it begins to behave like a metal. This is believed to exist deep within gas giants like Jupiter and Saturn. In the case of rockets, metallic hydrogen offers the thrust of ordinary chemical rockets, but with significantly better fuel efficiency. If true, it would revolutionize space travel. There are just two problems. One, we're not completely sure it actually exists yet. A few experiments have claimed to create it, but in each case it has been called into question by other researchers. Second, if it does exist, it has to be metastable in order to actually be useful as rocket fuel. Metastability means that once it is created in a high pressure situation, it has to be able to stay that way once that pressure is released. This metastability has not yet been observed in metallic hydrogen, and the recent study even suggested this might not be the case, which sadly casts doubt on whether this rocket engine will ever be possible in the real world. Of course, fiction is not the real world, so if you want to have pink exhaust metallic hydrogen spaceships roaring between planets in your own sci-fi setting, you have my blessing. Anyway, I hope this video will be useful for both increasing your knowledge and for whatever sci-fi universes you intend to create. Next time, we'll be continuing this series with electrical rockets, which include things like ion drives as well as some interesting future technologies. If you'd be interested in that sort of thing, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep an eye out for that. Until next time, I will see you all Starside.